We are talking today about the modest fashion industry, what I think is one of the largest untapped business opportunities for designers from this region. Women across the world dress modestly or cover by choice, in some countries even by law. But the point is that it's a huge market. And whether we choose to call it modest or conservative or Islamic, there are many ways to refer to it, but the opportunity is there. And that's what we're here to explore today. If we look only at the global Muslim population, their spend on garments and fashion was $224 billion in 2012, and that's numbers just released by the Dubai Chamber of Commerce a couple of weeks ago. So the potential is huge. It's actually larger than the spend that the Chinese had on clothes, the Russians, as well as the Germans. So the potential is there, and we have a really fantastic group of panelists with us today to talk about that, ranging from finance to stylists to designers and boutique owners. So I'd like to start with a quick introduction of everybody before we go into the discussion. To my left, we have Lamya Abedin. She's the designer of Queen of Spades, what I'd like to describe as a pret-a-couture line of abayas. She does more than abayas, actually gowns as well, and traditional wear. She launched her line in 2008, and she's a self-taught designer that began by making pieces, unique pieces for herself that were so well regarded by her peers and by society that she decided to make a business out of it. She retails in outlets like Galleries Lafayette in Dubai, and also recently launched her collection in South Africa, so she's beginning to look at clients beyond the Middle East as well. And next to Lamya, we have Albert Momdjian. He's the founder and CEO of Socotra Capital, a private investment company focused on frontier markets, including the Middle East, Mongolia, and Africa. And he targets investments in luxury real estate and hospitality, even agriculture. He was previously the managing director at UBS, where he headed the ultra high net worth group and corporate advisory for the Middle East and North Africa. Albert really knows how people spend, and he knows a lot about emerging markets and business opportunities. So he really brings a very unique perspective to our fashion discussion. And next we have Rabia Zargarpur. She's been creating creative, colorful veils that have blended both East and West for many years now. She's of Emirati and Afghan origin and spent most of her youth in the US, where she began to cover. And that's really influenced her design philosophy of blending modest fashion with the mainstream trends. Her brand, Rabia Z, has had enormous success online. She was one of the first to start selling through Facebook and other avenues to reach wide audiences. And next we have Abir Al-Swedi. In 2009, Abir founded Ush, the first multi-brand abaya store in the UAE, and still one of the largest in the region, to promote homegrown talent here. The boutique showcases the work of almost 40 local and regional established designers, as well as emerging talents, with offerings ranging from abayas to kaftans to accessories. She's also been a mentor to many young designers, Emirati and foreign, that appeal to this market. And so she brings a great perspective on what the consumers are looking for and what designers can do to really take it to the next level. And next we have Nadine Mezer. She's a senior manager for fashion and retail sector development at the Dubai Tourism and Commerce Marketing, which is part of the government of Dubai. She launched different initiatives under the umbrella of the Dubai Festival and Retail Establishment, which really support emerging designers and the retail sector. One of those is Market OTB, which many of you may have seen in front of the Burj Khalifa last year, and Abati, which is a platform for modest wear. And they're really doing a lot of work in this sector to help promote the modest fashion industry. And last but not least, we have Summer Albarcha. Summer is an American born and raised fashion blogger of Syrian origin. She's come to us all the way from St. Louis to talk to us today. Her identity online, Hipster Hijabis, she launched in August of 2012. And she was really using that name to showcase and convey her modest style through Instagram. And she's become a runaway success in that. She was recently featured in the Huffington Post, the Daily Mail, and the Village Voice, and other media outlets for collaborations she did with brands that went beyond just the Islamic fashion industry, including those that cater to the Orthodox Jewish market and others. So she brings a diaspora and interfaith perspective to our panel. So I'm going to get right into it now because we have a lot of people to talk to and a lot to talk about. I'm going to start with first the sort of definition of what is modest fashion, because, you know, I'm dressed modestly, and regardless of what my religion or background may be. And I think a lot of us here in this part of the world can dress modestly. what does it mean, and what's our client? And I'm going to start first with you, Rabia, because you have lived in the West and then came to the East and have catered to both markets.
Okay, yes. Hi, hello? Can you hear me? All right. No? Okay, here we go. Thank you. Hi, welcome. Okay, so I'm Rabia Z, and to me and my brand, Modesty or Modest Fashion, it's really a balance between trends and traditions, also balance between faith and fashion, but also expanding to other areas or other purposes, for example, comfort, body consciousness, to name just a few other things. But yeah, it's really a balance between the both.
Summer, you born and raised in the U.S. and you're of Syrian origin. So where does the way you dress fit in, and how would you describe modest?
All right.
Where you are?
In describing my style in the U.S., I think it caters a lot to what I find available as modest to me in the market. A lot of our stuff that we see is like modest pieces paired with immodest pieces. And so in trying to dress modestly, you have to pick out what you find modest in certain stores, which is not as accessible as it is here. And so that's what tries to define my style, is like making the most out of what you have.
And is that, in talking about that, what are your sources, for example? You know, here we can go to a boutique like Ush and find things if we want to look for a specific look that's uniquely modest. Or Lamya can create something really beautiful. Where have you gone to find these things?
Well, actually, your normal stores like H&M, Zara, Topshop, these stores all have a modest piece available. Like you'll find a maxi skirt or palazzo pants or like a long sleeve short dress, which could be paired with skinny jeans. These pieces, like you can find them, and in your just using your imagination, you can find a way to pair them together and make them not look cluttered, but at the same time look less revealing.
And in the U.S. or the Western markets, the way women cover is different than here. I mean, is this your first time in Dubai?
Yes, it is.
What have you noticed is the difference between the modest look there and the modest look here?
The modest look there would be very actually... it has a huge variety, because in America, I mean, there's a lot of variety of people here in Dubai as well, but you'll find every religion, every background living in the same city you do. And so everyone's standard of modesty is very different. Some people would like covering from their ankles and to their wrists. Others find modesty just as long as your shorts are not completely short. That is considered modest, like as in like dress codes. And so the difference I found really here is that people find modest fashion already, and so they just find ways to make it even more stylish and go beyond what is already mainstream style.
One of the recent Instagram posts that you had made was from a skirt from an Orthodox Jewish boutique based out of New York. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about for you and the collaboration, what it represented?
So the company, they sent me a skirt. They asked me, would you like to just model one of our skirts in your outfits that you usually post? And I said, yeah, sure. I mean, we were both kind of catering to the modest crowd, and we had a similar audience. So I posted the picture in my skirt, and she had reposted the picture on her Instagram page. But when she did, it started a bit of a controversy. It was at the height of the Gaza-Israel conflicts during the summer, and so a lot of the comments that were coming back were, why are we promoting this in this time? We should be united. And the company later came out with a statement saying that we can't fight hate with hate, and that we are both catering to modest fashion, and there was no religion or politics involved. We looked beyond that, and this controversy helped a lot of people to realize that there's so much interfaith actually in like a similarity between both of us, and that we both cater to the same kind of fashion, and not revealing so much and still looking professional, neat, and public.
So you have this market out there that in the West is, in fact, I did a Google search of modest fashion, and the first site that came up was actually a Christian clothing site. So it is quite varied in the West. But here in the Middle East and Far East, it is more Islamic centered, and that's a huge market opportunity. Albert, would you speak from a global investments perspective a little bit about who that market is and where you see it going?
Thanks, Ritu, and I don't know if you can hear me. Okay, thanks everyone, and Eid Mubarak again to everyone. I think I don't want to get into a religious discussion. I think we had some prelude about this in the preparation of the panel. But I look at it from a number point of view. Being a banker myself and having spent over 25 years in banking, I look at an opportunity. I look at the numbers first. Today, 10% of the global population is of Muslim origin. That is a very large number. So I look at it and I say, okay, how can I use this large number to look at a market that is equally important? And I realized that not only the Middle East is important, the Middle East and North Africa, but also you have sub-Saharan African countries, you have Europe, and you have the States. So I look at it on a global basis, and I think that there is definitely a market there that needs to be looked at and catered to by a lot of the brands. And I think at the same time, it's a beauty and opportunity for all the designers, specifically out of Dubai, to play a role in promoting that. Now, to give also a different image to the religion that we're talking a lot about these days in a negative way, unfortunately. And I think if you look at history, the Mongols a long time ago came in and destroyed a lot of what the Muslims, established. Then the Ottomans came back, and when they conquered a large number of the countries in the region, they had their influence. And you look at the centers of fashion, you had Persia, you had Egypt, to some extent Lebanon. But then Dubai can play a role in really bringing a different image of Islam through modest clothing. So that's how I look at it. But look at the numbers. These are very large markets. 50% of the Muslim population is below the age of 25. So you have an addressable market which represents 5% of the global population that you can go to and really sell your products to on a global basis, not only in the Middle East. So this is a starting point.
Lamya, you began here creating abayas after you created your own that people loved, and then you've slowly grown that. You recently launched in South Africa as well. Can you tell us a little bit about how do you design something? I know you feel very passionate about not wanting to give it a label, but you like to call it a beautiful piece of cloth. But how do you design something that can translate internationally?
Well, when I design, I like to think of so many different women, different races, different religions, different cultures. This is the way I design. Every collection has a story, a background of a different culture. My last was of a Mexican culture, which has nothing to do with the UAE. And since we are so cosmopolitan here, we have someone from everywhere living in one country. So when I design, I like to put all these different people in my mind, and I design for them. And there's so much beautiful things that you see in different cultures that you would want to incorporate it in an outfit. And I see it more of a style statement. I want it to be international. I want people to see it as something that you actually wear on top of an outfit. So it's a piece of an accessory. It's an addition that you wear on top of an outfit. It could be called abaya. It could be called a robe. It could be called a kimono. It could be called a sari. So there's so many different terminologies. When we travel, we like to see it as a coat. So we change the materials. We make them more winterish. We use fur. We use leather. And it can actually be looked at as a coat when we travel. So there's so many different names for it. It doesn't really have to have one common name. And it's such a comfortable piece when you wear, and very elegant, very chic. I see a lot of admiration from so many different people of different nationalities. They would stop and say, "Where can I get this piece from?" So this is my point of view of when I design, basically.
That's very interesting. And I think you were at one point also in Ush Boutique, which is Abir's boutique. And Abir, you have mentored a lot of young designers. And I imagine you've also seen the evolution of the abaya or jalabiya. And where was it, let's say, when you launched, which is not that long ago, and where is it now? What are you seeing and what are you carrying?
We started, it's working. We started in 2009, was when I first started Ush Boutique, and it was a platform for designers to come on board. And I can tell you one thing for sure is that the change has been like undescribable. I mean, the abaya has changed from a normal T-cut to something like what Lamya just now has said, and mashallah, what Rabia is designing. I mean, something that you can wear, and internationally, people can relate to this piece. So the abaya has transformed, and the kaftans has transformed big time. So there is a huge revolution in the abaya or the modesty wear.
Would you buy? Do you only buy designers that are based in the UAE?
No. I have designers from all over the GCC, and just now we have Taylor Marmot in Hall 2, who had just now their fashion show, and they're from Italy, and they started catering to the people of the Middle East, and so they are also showcasing in Ush Boutique. Mm-hmm. So you have different countries and different backgrounds designing.
I want to go to Nadine. Nadine, you started this initiative, Abati. Could you tell us a little bit about it? I mean, Albert was talking about how we have this opportunity to really make Dubai the center of this industry. And how is the government supporting that?
Now, from a government perspective, there's definitely different entities that are collaborating together to promote that specific sector or fashion in general. From Dubai tourism perspective, we aim at promoting Dubai as a hub. But our focus right now, for example, for me at least, is for fashion. And to promote Dubai as a fashion, you have a lot of different opportunities. Just like Albert was saying, this is really a big business opportunity to grasp when it comes to modest wear. And Dubai offers an amazing range of talented designers, not only just Dubai, but the region itself. So from a government perspective, I believe we can play a major role in that. So last year we did launch an initiative called Abati, and Abati is a platform. It's kind of like a mini fashion forward, but not really, but it's a combination of fashion shows. This year so next year in January 2015, we're looking to grow it bigger, and we want it to become it's more of an interpretation of what the abaya is. So it's not only the local abaya, but we're looking so it's abati. So it's how I see my abaya. So from a region perspective, you have the jalabiya, the kaftan. Each country in the region has its own interpretation of the abaya. So we want to give them this platform to be able to export this, what I like to call modernized traditional wear into international grounds. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of designers throughout history that did that to their country. If you look at Kenzo with the kimono and how they exported, something that is very traditional into the West. If you look into now Icelandic designers, what they're doing with the Icelandic sweater, they're also transforming it. The kafia, the Palestinian kafia also. So there's a lot of examples in fashion that showcase that traditional wear is not only something that is unique to the country, it can become global.
Yeah,
this is what we want.
I think Karl Lagerfeld showed this all in his resort collection here. For Chanel as well, that, it is a real style statement. Rabia, I want to bounce back to you because you have been sort of working at building a global clientele for some time. I imagine there are some challenges to that as well. And how do you address that? What are the challenges, and how are you working through them?
Okay, well, of course, there are a lot of challenges. First and foremost, modest fashion as a segment never really existed. It was never really acknowledged. So it took a while for the fashion industry to even acknowledge such a market. And today, as Albert would also agree, as he must have the numbers, how huge this market is. So people are starting to take it much more seriously, which is finally, great, because it's really high time. And I don't know if you have the numbers, but at His Highness's Global Islamic Economic Summit just last year, the numbers were at about 224 billion market size, and it's going to go up in about 2018 to 322 billion dollars. So, we're talking big numbers. So I think it's sort of high time that everyone started addressing modest fashion and started to take it more seriously. Of course, thanks to, Chanel, when they did their resort wear, and it was called, in the Western media, it was called Sharia style. For me, it was ironic to even read that word, and for Western media to call it Sharia style and be okay with it, Or, of course, the progress we've also had Donna Karan do the DKNY Ramadan campaign. So it just tells you that thing, alhamdulillah, it's going mainstream, and that's really been our goal from the get-go. But it's been very, very difficult because I started back in 2001, as you know, through my own challenges when I first started wearing hijab just a few months before the tragic 9/11 event. So I've faced the challenges firsthand, and there were at the time obviously not even a single, long sleeve type tops that covered your hips, and I'm talking 2001. So it was very, very difficult to find such pieces. So layering, of course, was an option, but I'm sure people have experienced some horrible layering if you've ever witnessed online through the years, if anyone follows modest fashion. So from all that trial and error, I think we've sort of come down and finally, have a look that's very appealing here and the West. So that's one. The other thing, I think the challenge is not in so much in the market, in the modest fashion market. The challenge, I think, lies more with the fact that we locally, I can speak here, is that we, unfortunately, it's still sort of a tailor-driven culture, and I think, not to disrespect, but maybe you guys will agree. I mean, we have like what I call the highest designer per capita. Our country has the highest design per capita, so everyone's a designer, alhamdulillah. And alhamdulillah, so we're all creative. That's great. That's great. But now the problem is. The problem is that we lack the professionalism, we lack the infrastructure. What's been happening is it's being started as a hobby, and unfortunately it's being treated as a hobby, which it shouldn't be, because it's a very serious business. As my mentor would addressed a few years ago, that fashion is the fifth largest money earner in the world. So the challenge lies that we take it still as a hobby, and we're not being serious about it, which is probably why buyers maybe don't take the designers as seriously. It's probably why they don't invest into the designers, and that's why we have the whole consignment issue, in our country. But that's a whole other topic.
You brought up the key word, which is investment. So I'm going to go to our investment guy. And my question is, Albert, everybody in the fashion industry often talks about this, is that why are people, there are so many opportunities to invest for people like you. Where does fashion fall in that for you? And what would it take for this room full of amazing creatives to get someone like you to come invest in their business? What are you looking for?
I think before I answer this question, I want to make a couple of comments on what I just heard. It's very encouraging to hear that the same challenges that you're facing in the industry are being faced by other people in other industries. So you should not look at the modest industry's challenges to be unique for this industry. That's number one. They're all the same. Second, I think before I answer your question, we keep on talking only about modest industry, but this is something important to put in the context of the numbers I mentioned earlier. The 10% of the population is of Muslim origin. You have the halal food industry, which is a global industry. It is very prosperous and it's working on a global basis. You have the Islamic finance. A lot of people said, how can you mix both? And this has been mixed. This has worked. They've had their own challenges. But you'll be certainly maybe glad to hear, or at least surprised to hear, that the government of South Africa and others have tapped the Islamic banking world recently, and others will be coming. And I've even heard that the largest investment bank in the States, maybe Goldman Sachs, is considering issuing a sukuk. So, and we all know the background of Goldman Sachs. So I think we really need to remove ourselves from looking only at the modest industry and the modest industry's challenges, and try and tag along to the other initiatives that are related to the modest industry, like the food, like the pharmaceuticals, and others. Now, the why we look at it and why we would not look at it, we look at it purely on numbers business. We're not in the emotional investment. We let others do the emotional investment. It is up to the right promoters and the right designers to present the opportunities in a proper way. And we will come in to help them out to really assess the opportunity from a pure financial point of view. If ourselves or our clients invest in this industry, it needs to make sense. And I believe it makes a lot of sense. It's also a very defensive industry. And if you look at the potential, it is there. Whatever happens, 10% of the population, it is an addressable market and you cannot change it. And this population is going to grow. And they have their own needs, and they have to really to demonstrate that they can live and mix with other communities across the globe. 20% only of the Muslims are in the Middle East and North Africa. 80% is outside. Those communities face the same issues with the hijab and others on a daily basis. And that's why I'm saying they will see a pushback specifically after what's happening in the region, for those communities to really promote their own identity in a different way. And that's why I believe it's a very, very unique opportunity, and Dubai should play a role in promoting that.
Would you, Abir, take Ush outside of the Middle East?
Funny you say this because we're right now in talks with South Africa, and we're planning to open up the boutique there very soon. So that's something definitely that's coming out there. There is a demand, like Albert is saying, and they do outside. And I'm surprised when you said 20% and the 80% is outside. It's
15% is in sub-Saharan Africa.
Wow, so it's a big market.
I mean, Dubai has positioned itself as a global hub for retail. So we have retail tourism coming from everywhere. I think it's very viable for us to be a global hub for our homegrown brands catering to this unique niche industry. And
Ritu, sorry, not only retail. I was at the conference last week about Africa. Again, His Highness is very, very keen to push for Dubai as a hub for Africa. And he succeeded. I have to say, you had on one panel, you have 4 or 5 presidents of African countries who were present, and they were talking about the role of Dubai and why they're using Dubai as a hub. So it's not only about initiatives on retail, it's everything that goes around it, from logistics point of view, from a financial point of view, from also political will point of view, and more importantly, you have companies like Emirates Airlines who are really pushing to become the dominant player in Africa. So this will allow a lot of the brands and a lot of retailers to go to these countries more
access
easily.
Points. Yeah. Rabia, could you speak a little bit about accessing those markets? Because you have, I think what we have done very well in this part of the world, and speaking to your point of, we have a lot of designers here. So we have a real grassroots creative movement out of this part of the world, but we don't have any major Islamic, modest, whatever we decide to call it, conservative fashion brand. We don't have a Zara, but it sounds like the market is ripe and waiting for something like that. I know, and we've talked about this in the past, you have attempted to do collaborations with larger retailers, which didn't move forward or went to a certain state and then were not able to execute for whatever reasons. How do we get there now? Could you tell us a little bit about your experience and what you're doing now? I know you just had twins, so you've taken a bit of a break and now you're relaunching your brand. And can you tell me how are you doing that? What are you going about to access the larger marketplace now?
Okay. Well, fortunately, because we basically started online, with all due respect, we just, said no to local buyers due to consignment. So we just decided to do direct sales through our website. And, of course, being, having a global reach through the internet, of course. It was amazing how we had, to date, we have about 75 franchise requests from around the world, and mostly from the West. So that really, opened our eyes and got us to be much more serious about, getting out there. So obviously, what we're doing is that we couldn't do it alone anymore. So we're just at the moment in talks with our investor partners to sort of do a global, inshallah, global launch of the Rabia Z brand through franchise strategy as well as a few others. So that's one way that we're going about it. The little story that we had, that was a few years ago actually, was back in, one was in 2009 and one was in 2010, where I approached these two, in 09 I approached Adidas, if I can mention them now, because I wasn't mentioning them before. I love you guys, but anyway, I had approached them to do a collaboration, and they loved the idea. The local office went ecstatic. They were, very excited, because obviously they saw the potential. And as soon as it went to headquarters, came back with a lame excuse, sorry, that, we're too busy. Actually, that's what they said. We're too busy with other collaborations. Same thing happened with H&M, where even my contacts in Sweden were the ones pushing forward to do this collaboration. The local office, again, the region was very excited because, they see the potential and all. As soon as it went to headquarters, came right back saying, sorry, but we're too busy doing other things. So, but I think that's changed, because now, as I said, with DKNY doing the Ramadan campaign that just happened this year, so it's changing. I think maybe, as usual, I was just too soon to propose such collaborations, and perhaps now, inshallah, it will be different. Yeah.
We were talking about the issue of distribution, and you mentioned also buyers here being hesitant to buy right out, and rightfully so in many cases, because a lot of times there's problems with delivery.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk a little bit. First, we'll start with Abir. How do you select a designer, and how do you know they're going to be viable for you and that they'll deliver on an order?
Well, we definitely have a contract and rules, and to make sure everything's delivered properly and all. But definitely now, for example, for Oush Boutique, it goes through a lot of different steps, and definitely they have to give something that is different. Not everybody, like Rabia said, everybody's a designer in the UAE. So definitely we're looking for the very special designers. Definitely we're looking for quality at a certain standard, and they found a niche, something different that they can offer my customers. This is something that they have to definitely,
Are you buying outright, or do you start on consignment?
Consignment. I work on consignment. Not because I don't, like Rabia says, but consignment is the way I work.
Because for your business, that's the only.
Well, yeah, because Oush Boutique is not. It's also a platform to push. I mean, I've had designers that came on board in 2009, and today they own their own boutiques, and it makes me proud. And so Oush is a luxury boutique, and it is a platform, and it does help the designer definitely reach places, and that's what we aim for through the boutique.
Lamya, could you tell us a little bit about the production process? And you're self-taught, so you began completely on your own.
I am.
And production is a challenge, I imagine. How have you managed to sustain and grow your business?
Well, we produce one-of-a-kind pieces, so each design is very different from the other one, and I like to sustain this because it was a new idea. No one had come up with it, and it was challenging because when I first tried to enter the departmental stores and asking them if they would take on board the Queen of Spades, and they would say, how would this concept work in a department store? Because as you said, they work on mass production. But surprisingly, I competed with huge brands such as Karen Millen, Pierre Balmain, you have Manouche, so many different brands that we have hit #1 on their sales a couple of times. So there is a market, there is the niche. Now, in terms of production, alhamdulillah, so far, I've never broken a word. So we do produce, like I have special production schedule with my tailors, and we work upon that. So since I'm a self-taught designer, I don't even sketch. So there's an idea in the mind, and I need to portray that idea in my way to my tailors. And how I do that is by pinning on a mannequin or explaining to them in my language. So they do understand that, and I've had my tailors since I've started, and they're the same people I work with till today, and they do understand me. And production is a hinder when it comes to the fabric deliveries, for example. It's not in the base of where we actually produce the items, because if you plan it well and you know when the delivery time is for a specific boutique, then you're fine, then you're okay. But sometimes the problems come from the mills or the factories or the suppliers. So there are other challenges that we face, and we try to find ways around that as well. But it isn't really a big problem. I mean, if you time it, plan it well, it does work in the end.
So your product sort of is small volume oriented because each piece is one of a kind and unique, and so you're not you want to expand globally, but it's more in a couture mindset in that each
it is
piece
because I see it as a unique thing. I mean, there are a lot of designers in my field as well, but I like to think of things that have not been done before. And that's my approach. Whatever is new, not been done before, that's where you'll see Lamya going. So I like the challenge. I like to make it work, basically. Failure is not in my dictionary, so I don't give up. I mean, although there's a lot of things that actually happen on a daily basis with us. I'm a mother of 3, by the way. So I'm full-handed, and Queen of Spades is my 4th baby. But I try to give time to my kids and my husband and my business at the same time. And so far, I mean, we have gone beyond the GCC now. I'm proud to say that we sell, and Lafayette was the first department store to take Queen of Spades, and they found me. I didn't find them, so that was something really nice, and I'm very proud to say that, because they had seen my design on someone, and they thought that there was potential in this design. And so the owner approached and said, how would your concept work? And it showed, I said, let's try it out. That's what I said. I said, let's experiment. They don't lose anything if they experiment or they take on the brand and see how it goes for a season. If it works, you'll see the brand there the next season. And that's how you can actually, see if a brand is doing well. If you see the brand in the same department store the next season, the brand did well last season. So that's...
and you've been there for...
I have been there since they started, alhamdulillah, yani. And we have gone from Lafayette, we have gone to Qatar, we have gone to Saudi Arabia, Harvey Nichols in Saudi Arabia, and today we're also in South Africa for the last 3 seasons. And this is something that I'm really proud of, because they approached me through Instagram. They didn't hear about Queen of Spades before, so Instagram is a very a very valuable source for me now.
Absolutely. I think the base between Facebook sales, Rabia, and you could actually tell us a little bit more. You've had a lot of collaborations as well through Instagram. How did you build up your following, and how are, for a designer, if they want to market quite easily, it seems that approaching hipster hijabi would be one good way to do it. Tell us a little bit about that relationship you have with fashion houses and design.
So what it starts is basically making an account and having small-scale followers, your friends, your family, and when you start posting things that people are like they like seeing different ways to style things. If they start seeing that you're catering to something they don't see on every single page, because there are so many hijab fashion pages out there and modest fashion pages out there, and when people see something they like, they start to repost it, or they'll feature on a different page. And so those kind of things build up followers. And as well, if you stay on a daily schedule or like a weekly schedule of posting, people expect that you will be posting a picture at this time. They can rely on finding inspiration in your page. And so that's something that builds up followers, and it builds up also loyalty to the followers in checking your page every once in a while. And along with the advertising, once people see that there is an interest, advertisers know that they can cater to different markets. And my page, it caters to not only Islamic fashion, but ever since the controversy, I've had a lot of Jewish and Christian followers, and of all backgrounds, who are interested in this new idea that we have in the West. And this is why you get like small scale companies sending accessories or pieces like shirts and jackets, and it just helps to build like more of like a collaboration of interfaith, as well as including like different ideas of what their brand can offer and what I can offer.
Would you shop, because we have a lot of designers and business people here. You're a target consumer, as well as a stylist. Are you in your market, or talking about the diaspora markets, looking for a major brand that can cater to all of your needs? So if there was a Zara of modest fashion, would that do well?
I think it would do well, and I would definitely like to see more of Middle Eastern design collaborations with big brands that we have in the U.S. Like, I would love to see a UAE designer have a collaboration with H&M, and so I would walk into H&M in where I'm from in St. Louis and see that they have an Arab style clothing, and people love this kind of stuff where I'm from. They think it's like so exotic and beautiful, and here we see it every day, and we think it's beautiful as well. But I definitely think that those big brands should be asking you guys for these collaborations, and I would love to see these.
Nadine, with the initiative like Abati, are you seeing interest, the Dubai shopping festivals and all of these things that are produced by the government attract a lot of international interest in Dubai. Have you guys tracked or seen that international interest also looking towards abayas or more traditional wear? Because emergent fashion design can be modest wear, and then it's, your mainstream fashion design. And I know a lot of our designers don't like to think of modest fashion as not being mainstream. But it is, defined as the industry as more of a niche market. What can we do to attract more attention to that niche market? Is Abati, can you bring in buyers internationally? Is that interest there yet?
I believe there's a lot we can do, honestly. And the thing is, when you look at the value chain of the fashion industry, there's a lot of work that has to be done. And like I mentioned before, from a government perspective, we have different entities working together, whether it is the Executive Council or Dubai Tourism, or, now we have actually the Fashion Council that was announced and now it's been activated. So there's a lot of work to be done. But when we look at the fashion industry, we look at the different sectors within it. So whether it is from the textile supply to the manufacturing and production to the education itself that we have. So in Dubai, we're still kind of weak when it comes to education and fashion. There's a lot of work to be done. So we are trying to work from a government perspective with the different entities to make these happen. From a Dubai festival and retail establishment, which is my department actually, we look mostly at the retail sector, a lot at the retail sector. And as you mentioned, Dubai is actually positioned as one of the top retail destinations in the world. So according to different reports, you would have either Dubai #1 or London #1. So it depends. But from a retail perspective, I think we accomplished a lot. Dubai started as a couple of high streets and a couple of malls, and nowadays, we have more than 70 malls across the city, and it's growing and growing. So that's something we definitely focus on, but we also try to do a lot of initiatives to support. And like I said, especially to me, it's very important to support local designers and emerging designers to showcase them internationally, that Dubai has what it takes to become a major player. Now, if you look at the international fashion scene when it comes to Islamic wear or modest wear, you do have different capitals that are trying to be established, and Dubai is going to compete on that front for sure. So we have Indonesia, we have Malaysia. Surprisingly, now we have LA coming up. So there's a lot of different places in the world that want to tap into that market. And I'm sure Dubai would become really a hub for that kind of fashion. So, yeah.
Rabia, the question is, if we're going to try and sort of position Dubai or designers based out of Dubai to be able to take that market, because as Albert pointed out, we have distribution channels very easily. We have Emirates Airlines. We have the reach to so many parts of the world based on where we are geographically.
Yeah.
How is that in some ways? It seems like so far as designers, we haven't harnessed that full potential yet.
Not yet, but it will get there. I mean, D3 is fairly new, so we have them, thank God. We have the council that was recently announced, which, we're still, of course, waiting to see how that's going to go. There are benefits, but at the same time, there aren't not as much as the U.S. because I started in the U.S. I think U.S. definitely for young labels or for startups, it's amazing. Here, the challenges are still there, but alhamdulillah, they're working on it, and I think it's just a matter of time before they can actually claim it to be the hub that they want to be. And the fact, again, that they had the Global Islamic Economic Summit last year, which is now, as you said, focusing on all these other segments of like halal markets and cosmetics and tourism, food, fashion. So, we have no doubt that that's going to definitely make a difference.
Yeah.
So, Ritu, just to go back to the question asked,
2006, when they set up the financial center, Dubai Financial Center, everyone was laughing. I remember I was in London at that time. How can Dubai compete with London, Singapore, Hong Kong, and New York? And look, we're in 2014. It took a long time. But it has emerged as a financial center. Why? Because they created a specific entity responsible for the development or also for attracting the appropriate financial institutions. Now, with the arrival of D3, clearly, I think all the designers and all the institutions and the entrepreneurs operating in that field really will feel that there is a recognition, a minimum of recognition for them. And they'll be able also to share their experiences. You know, what you've done today, the experience that you had in setting up your business, you cannot share it with someone else, or at least outside of your close friends and family, because you haven't had the chance to interact with people and to share with them what went wrong and what went in the right direction. So hopefully with the arrival of D3, you begin to create the right environment for the designers to really look at it in a different way. But that's not enough. Then you have to educate also the financial institutions and also the population and the investors who now will be able to look at this industry as a profitable industry. And I really encourage all the designers in their discussions with investors not to be emotionally attached only to their brand, to speak to them in the same lingo, i.e., I'm going to make money. And if I make money, you're going to make money. It doesn't mean that this is what's your driver. Your driver is really to come up with beautiful abayas and to really show it across the globe. But at the same time, you need to explain to the investors, hey, you're going to make money because of the following reasons, so that they can put the right resources to look into it. You mentioned why Adidas did not look at it. Well, you know, the size of the population, Muslim population here is 2.4%. So when you have a big company like Adidas, that their main target is Europe, you tell them, go and develop it. They can say, you know what, 97.5% of my population or my addressable market has nothing to do with this. Why should I bother about it? From a financial point of view. Now, if you talk to them in a different way, say, hey, you want to access Asia. Asia has a lot of Muslim population. Therefore, to enter Asia, you need to develop your own brand. That will work better. But if you want to tell them, why don't you help me out for Europe? No one is going to look into it.
I don't know, it wasn't to help me out.
I know. No, what I mean, maybe the word helping is not the right term, but they're not going to focus on it. They have other priorities.
Yeah, and that's a challenge that designers, whether you're in this niche or any emerging designer anywhere in the world, really has to address. And that's how do you grow and where do you get the funding? And Albert, thank you, because I think you brought up really important challenges for creative industries. We had this discussion yesterday about the fact that in creative industries, we often look at our product first and creating what is the product and really the end user last. Whereas investors look at it, who's your end user and are they really going to buy it first? So there's almost an inverse relationship and we have to close that gap. I'm going to quickly go to some questions because I think we're getting close to the end of our time. But I'd like to give the mic to Sanya Kirpalani, who's actually was the first person to introduce many of us to this industry of modest fashion. She's a filmmaker here.
Yeah, thanks. I've been researching. Part of my research is forms the National Archives. 2006, we started the research. I don't mean to any dishonor, but yes, it was her story that led to D3. Just FYI, because it was her story and 3 stories of 3 girls who won the national award, and Sheikh Majid took up this document. At the same time, D3 was being planned, and I was a part of the strategy team. So yes, it has been their voices that has led to it. Secondly, Adidas went on record saying it was their Islamophobia that made them back out. No other reason. This year, we picked up the Puma and Adidas Global Impact Award for the same film on that one. 6 years later. It took them 6 years to give us the same. So you're very right that we are at the right time and the right place to make that change. But most importantly, why is Malaysia, like you rightly pointed out, the base of it all, and we're not able to even get there? Can you tell me how many stores of local designers are in our malls, 70 malls?
I agree with you. I think there's
Bingo.
a big work to be done. I think, anyways, one of the challenges for our designers is the retail space and the rent of the retail space. This is why we do.
It on camera.
Of course, at the end of the day, it's like Albert says, they look at commercial models and they look at money making. And to them, this is when, if Dubai is positioned as a retail destination, they can get all these global brands and they pay the big money, right? So we agree on that.
Very well.
That's why sometimes we do these initiatives. Like last year, we did Market OTB to give the designers a platform where they can test their products and they can actually get to their market without having to pay the big premium on retail space.
Nadine, I can't tell you how the designers came and praised about you. What you have done for them last year, put them right up there, all the confidence level of all the designers in this region who are conservative or Muslim or Islamic or modest fashions were really raised by this simple initiative. And the thought of having someone like you in the market is really going to give them hope, because this is what they lack. They lack the market. They lack the distribution. People still keep taking only on consignments, not showing confidence, not building them. There were no investors. They kept using their money and it all got tied up. There was no form of legal. It wasn't even an industry. Thanks to D3, we're now an industry.
Yeah.
So they're now, even though they've been struggling for 8, 9, 10 years, I see them as now they've come for their reckoning. And as Mr. Albert again pointed out, this is our time. We need to seize it. We've made our mistakes. We've made our learnings. It's invaluable. The learning curves that you shared with the whole industry time and time again through your mentorship of the industry is going to give us the new face. But we need support. As a person who's been mentoring this industry for the longest time, I feel our biggest lacking is distribution, finance, and being able to go and retail at our own malls or become stores of our own. And I think they're all being addressed right now. What I'd like to know is how they're being addressed.
Sorry,
We can take two more questions.
If I may take that one. So it's, as we were talking before, as we were mentioning, our fashion industry has been a bit immature. Now we are in the phase of maturity and we are getting there. So it, just like Albert again said before, these type of initiatives would take time to see the result. It's not a short time vision, and we do have a fashion strategy for 2020, which I'm sure you're aware of. And there's a lot of work to be done here. It's a long-term plan, and slowly you will see the result. There's a lot of work to be done, whether it is by the experimentation of designers to get there, or for us as government initiatives.
On the consignment versus full purchase, which is also another point you mentioned, sad story is not going to change. Why? Because if I'm an investor, would I go and buy something I don't know if I'm going to sell? The answer is no. Because the big chunk, in addition to the retail and the rent in the retail business, is the working capital. And the majority of the working capital, once you do the fit out in the shop, is going to be the purchase of the stock. Now, if I'm not comfortable, this is a stock I can sell, I'm not going to buy it. So, yes, there'll be some support, but you need to understand also there are challenges and obstacles. No one is going to give funding to buying some large amount of quantities that you may or may not sell. So it needs to be a combination of multi-stores and I think Facebook and other type of platforms to sell your products. But sadly, it's not going to be just full purchase. If you build your business exclusively on this, you're in the wrong industry.
Probably. Thank you all so much. I think everyone spoke so well and brought such great perspectives to this. This is just the beginning of the conversation, as was pointed out, and there's a lot of great initiatives out there. Thank you all for coming. I'm sorry we're not able to take any more questions, but I think a lot of our speakers will be available after. Thank you.